Ladies and gentlemen, I am Lady Lilith, and welcome to Eerie Embers. The missing case of Richard James Edwards. Richard James Edwards, born on the 22nd of December 1967 and disappeared on the 1st of February 1995. He was known to the world as Richie James or Richie Manic. He was a presence in the Welsh music scene as the lyricist and rhythm guitarist for the alternative rock band, the Manic Street Preachers. His words were like incantations, steeped in darkness, dripping with political unrest, and left a lingering presence in the hearts of those who listened. He was not just a songwriter. His voice led the Cool Cymru movement into the annals of legend. On a cold morning on the 1st of February 1995, Richard James Edwards vanished without a trace, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in mystery. Despite years of searching, hope turned to despair, and on the 24th of November 2008, he was officially declared presumed dead on or since the day he disappeared. Yet Edward's presence lingered, not just in memory, but in the words he left behind. On the 18th of May 2009, the Manic Street Preachers released their 9th album, Journal for Plague Lovers, a haunting collection composed entirely of lyrics penned by Edwards before he disappeared. Even as of 2005, the band continued to honour his memory in a tangible way, depositing 25% of all royalties into an account bearing his name, a tribute to a man whose spirit remains entwined with the music. Richard James Edwards was born into the quiet, brooding town of Blackwood, Wales, where the mist-shrouded valleys seemed to whisper secrets of those who dared to listen. He was the eldest child of Graham and Sherry Edwards, his birth marking the beginning of a life destined to be both brilliant and tragic. Growing up, he shared a deep bond with his younger sister Rachel, born in 1969. Their connection was profound, as if they were two kindred spirits navigating their small Welsh town together, bound by blood and the mysteries that would later engulf their lives. Quoted from Rachel Edwards' GQ magazine in April 2020, "It sounds like a cliché, but it was a very happy family, a very happy upbringing. I know Richard is on record as having said the same thing. He was 2 years older than me, and my overwhelming memory of our childhood is that he was very supportive of me. When I was at school, I used to have a lot of anxiety, particularly around schoolwork. When I went on to a comprehensive school, he'd already been there a couple of years. At the end of each day, we'd walk our dog Snoopy, I'd talk to him about my homework, and he would help me. He'd allay my fears, which, I suppose in retrospect, is ironic given the anxiety he suffered the years later." Edwards walked the halls of Oakdale Comprehensive School, where fate intertwined with his path with those of Nicky Wire, Sean Moore, and James Dean Bradfield, names that would later echo through the Brit rock history. It was within these walls that the seeds of the Manic Street Preachers were sown. their shared passions and unspoken dreams binding them together. From 1986 to 1989, Edwards ventured further into the shadows of academia at the University of Wales in Swansea. There he delved into the murky depths of political history, emerging with a degree. But the knowledge he gained was not without a cost, as the darkness of the world's injustices seemed to seep into his very soul, deepening the enigmatic aura that would come to define him. Edwards began his journey with the Manic Street Preachers in a humble role, serving as a driver and a roadie. But the shadows of the stage soon called him into their fold, and by 1989 he was no longer just a background figure. He had become the band's spokesman and fourth member. Though his musical abilities were minimal, Edwards' true gift lay in the dark, poetic lyrics and stark, evocative designs that defined the band's image. On stage, he often mimed playing the guitar, his presence more symbolic than musical, as his contributions during studio sessions were limited to just 2 tracks. Yet his influence was profound. As the band's principal lyricist, alongside bassist Nicky Wire, Edwards' words became the lifeblood of the Manic Street Preachers. His tormented prose, steeped in bleak introspection and social commentary, found its purest expression on their 3rd album, The Holy Bible, for which Edwards penned nearly 80% of the lyrics. Even after his disappearance, his spectral influence lingered. Edwards was credited as the sole lyricist on 3 tracks from the 1996 album Everything Must Go, and co-writer on 2 others. Though his voice fell silent, his words continued to haunt the band's music, a ghostly echo of his presence that refused to fade. Though Richie Edwards' hands rarely strummed the strings or struck the chords, his influence on the Manic Street Preachers' musical direction was undeniable. Behind the scenes, he was a driving force, shaping the band's sound with his vision and unyielding creative spirit. As recounted by the remaining members on the Everything Must Go DVD, Edwards played a pivotal role in steering the band's musical journey, even if his contributions were more conceptual than instrumental. Edwards harboured grand ambitions for the band's future, dreaming of a concept album that would fuse the raw aggression of Pantera, the industrial edge of 9 Inch Nails, and the psychedelic grooves of Screamadelica. It was a bold and audacious vision, one reflected in his deep desire to push the boundaries of their music into darker, more experimental territories. Yet this vision was not without its challenges. Lead guitarist and vocalist James Dean Bradfield later confessed his reservations about such a direction. As the chief composer of the band, Bradfield worried that his melodic sensibilities might clash with Edwards' darker aspirations. I was worried that as a chief tunesmith in the band, I wasn't actually going to be able to write things that he would have liked, Bradfield admitted, acknowledging that for the first time, the band might have faced a creative impasse driven by conflicting tastes. In the end, Edwards' disappearance left this potential conflict unresolved, a ghostly what if that lingers in the band's history. An album that was never made, and a sound that was never fully realised, haunted by the shadows of the man who envisioned it. Richie Edwards was a man haunted by his own inner demons. His battle with severe depression, a constant, dark undercurrent that he never sought to hide. In interviews, Edwards spoke openly about his struggles, revealing a psyche tormented by an unbearable weight. His coping mechanisms were as harrowing as his words. Self-harm became his grim release. He would stub out cigarettes on his arm or cut himself, explaining with chilling clarity, "When I cut myself, I feel much better. All the little things that might have been annoying me suddenly seem so trivial because I am concentrating on the pain. I'm not a person who can scream and shout, so this is my only outlet. It's all done very logically." One of the most infamous moments of Edward's life occurred on the 15th of May 1991, after a gig at the Norwich Arts Centre. Following the performance, NME journalist Steve Lamacq questioned the sincerity of Edward's artistic persona, a doubt that struck a nerve. In a disturbingly calm and deliberate act, Edwards took a razor blade and carved the word "for real" into his forearm, the blood flowing freely as he etched the truth into his flesh. The wound was severe and required 18 stitches to close, but the message was unmistakable. Edwards was, for real, his pain and his art inseparable, a testament written in blood. Richie's struggles with insomnia were yet another tormenting shadow in his life, a darkness he sought to escape through alcohol, using it as a desperate means to find sleep. The year 1994, a time when the band was on the cusp of releasing their third album, The Holy Bible, saw Edward's demons intensify. His mental health deteriorated to the point where he checked himself into Whitechurch Hospital and later the Priory Hospital, seeking solace within their sterile, confining walls. Those days forced him to miss much of the promotional work for the album, leaving the band to soldier on as a three-piece at major festivals like Reading and Tea in the Park. His absence a gaping wound in their performances. When Edwards was finally released from the Priory in September, it was as if the end was already written. The Manic Street Preachers embarked on what would be their final tour with Edwards, joining forces with Suede and Therapy for a European tour that felt like a march towards an inevitable conclusion. His last live performance took place on the 21st of December at the London Astoria, a night that would be etched in infamy. The concert ended in chaos, with Edwards violently destroying his guitar during the ferocious closer, You Love Us, triggering a band-wide destruction of equipment and even damaging the venue's lighting system. It was as though Edwards was trying to exorcise the rage and despair that had long haunted him. One final, ferocious act of defiance against the darkness within. On the 23rd of January 1995, just days before he would vanish without a trace, Edwards gave what would be his last interview to a Japanese music magazine, Music Life. The words he left behind, both spoken and sung, remain as haunting echoes of a life that burned so intensely and was extinguished too soon. On the 1st of February 1995, Richie Edwards vanished into the void, just as he and James Dean Bradfield were set to board a flight to the United States for a promotional tour of the Holy Bible. The day before his disappearance, Edwards had been withdrawing £200 daily from his bank account, a seemingly inexplicable ritual that had amassed a total of £2,800 by the day of the scheduled flight, equivalent to £7,321 in March 2024. The purpose of this cash remains shrouded in mystery. Speculation swirled around whether Edwards intended to use the money during the US tour, or if it was meant to cover the cost of a desk he had ordered from a shop in Cardiff. However, no such record exists of a desk ever being purchased, leaving only half of the withdrawn sum accounted for. The rest of the cash and the reasons behind its accumulation remain a haunting enigma, intertwining with the larger mystery of Edward's disappearance and the unanswered questions that continue to plague his legacy. The night before his disappearance, Richie made a cryptic gesture that would only deepen the mystery surrounding his final days. According to Emma Forrest, as detailed in A Version of Reason, Edwards handed a friend a copy of the book Novel with Cocaine, specifically instructing her to read the introduction. The book's prologue recounts the author's time spent in a mental asylum before vanishing, a chilling parallel to Edward's own fate. During his stay at the Embassy Hotel in Bayswater Road in London, Edwards engaged in an unsettling ritual. He meticulously removed books and videos from his bag, including a copy of the play Equus. These items were carefully placed in a box, which he then wrapped like a birthday present. The box was adorned with a collage of quotations and bizarre imagery, including a picture of a Germanic-looking house and the image of Bugs Bunny. Scrawled across the wrapping was the simple yet haunting message, "I love you." The package was addressed to Jo, his on-again, off-again girlfriend, with whom he had shared a tumultuous relationship over the years but had recently parted ways. This final, enigmatic act was both an intimate gesture and cryptic farewell, a blend of affection and unresolved turmoil that only deepens the haunting enigma of Edward's disappearance. The box, with its strange semblance of personal and cryptic elements, remains a poignant symbol of his troubled state of mind as he prepared to step into the unknown. The morning of the 1st of February 1995 began with Richard James Edwards performing a series of unsettlingly ordinary tasks, shrouded in the air of foreboding. He gathered his wallet, his car keys, a small supply of Prozac, and his passport, items that seemed mundane yet would become intricately linked to his disappearance. At precisely 7 a.m. he checked out of the Embassy Hotel, leaving behind his toiletries and packed suitcase, as well as a portion of his Prozac, hinting at an incomplete departure. Edwards then made the journey to his flat in Cardiff, but with an eerie twist. He left behind his passport, some Prozac, and a receipt from the Severn Bridge toll booth. Symbols of a journey interrupted and a life left in limbo. In the weeks that followed, sightings of Edwards added to the growing enigma of his fate. He was reportedly seen at the Newport Passport Office and later at Newport Bus Station by an unsuspecting fan who engaged him in conversation about a mutual acquaintance, Laurie Fiddler. This brief encounter, marked by the fans' unawareness of the gravity of the situation, added yet another layer of mystery to Edward's final days. His presence, fleeting and enigmatic, became a ghostly trace of life suspended between departure and disappearance. In 2018, a revelation turned the established timeline of Richie Edwards' final hours on its head. A crucial piece of evidence. A toll booth ticket from the Severn Bridge had previously been misinterpreted. It was long believed that the 2:55 timestamp indicated 2:55 p.m., which had influenced numerous assumptions and appeals for information about Edward's whereabouts. However, the discovery of the original software engineer who developed the bridge's ticking system brought new clarity. The engineer confirmed that the ticket was printed using a 24-hour clock format. This revelation meant that Edwards had actually passed the Severn Bridge at 2:55 a.m., not p.m. This adjustment drastically altered the timeline of Edwards' movements and undermined the previous appeals and investigative theories that had been based on the incorrect assumption. The shift in understanding not only disrupted the chronology of events leading up to his disappearance, but also highlighted the challenge in piecing together the elusive details of his final days. The true timing of his journey became a ghostly puzzle, now reshuffled and obscured by the newfound accuracy of the toll's ticket timestamp. On the 7th of February 1995, a taxi driver from Newport reported an unsettling encounter that would add another layer to Richie's disappearance. According to the driver, Richie was picked up from the King's Hotel and requested a ride through the valleys, including a stop in his hometown of Blackwood. The driver observed that the passenger spoke with a Cockney accent, which would occasionally slip into a Welsh lilt, adding to the eerie sense of dislocation surrounding the journey. At one point, Edwards asked if he could lie down on the back seat, a peculiar request that hinted at his state of mind. As they arrived in Blackwood and approached the bus station, Edwards reportedly declared, "This is not the place," prompting him to request a trip to Pontypool railway station instead. When it was later discovered that Pontypool had no telephone service, making it an odd choice given Edward's previous interactions. The journey ended at the Severn View service station near Aust, South Gloucestershire, where Edwards exited the taxi and paid the £68 fare in cash. The unsettling nature of his trip, marked by Edwards' disjointed speech and peculiar requests, left an indelible mark on the investigation. His final actions seemed to echo with a sense of urgency and confusion, as if he was searching for a place or meaning that remained just out of reach. On the 14th of February 1995, Richie Edwards' Vauxhall Cavalier received a parking ticket at the Severn View service station, casting an ominous shadow over his movements. By the 17th of February, the car was reported as abandoned, sparking concern and further investigation. When police examined the vehicle, they found the battery dead and signs that it had been lived in, an unsettling indication of Edward's troubled state. Inside the car were personal photos he had taken of his family days earlier, adding a poignant touch to the unfolding mystery. The service station's proximity to the Severn Bridge, a notorious site known for suicides, led many to speculate that Edwards may have jumped from the bridge. This tragic possibility was bolstered by the grim context of his final days. In 1994, Edwards had approached the subject of suicide with a strikingly complex view. Quote, "In terms of the S word, that does not enter my mind, and it never has done, in terms of an attempt. Because I am stronger than that. I might be a weak person, but I can take pain." His words hinted at a profound internal struggle, a juxtaposition of resilience and vulnerability that added a haunting depth to the speculation surrounding his disappearance. Since his mysterious disappearance, Richie James Edwards has been the subject of numerous intriguing and inconclusive sightings. Eyewitnesses have claimed to have seen him in various locations far from his last known whereabouts, including a bustling market in Goa, India, and the sun-drenched islands of Fuerteventura and Lanzarote. These sightings, predominantly reported in the years immediately following his disappearance, have fueled a web of speculation and intrigue. Despite the compelling nature of these reports, none have been sustained with concrete evidence or verified by official investigators. Each claimed sighting adds to the mystique and uncertainty surrounding Edward's fate, leaving the public and authorities alike grappling with the enduring enigma of his whereabouts. The investigation into Richard James Edwards' disappearance has faced considerable criticism over the years. In his 1999 book, Everything, a book about the Manic Street Preachers, Simon Price harshly critiques the handling of the case, asserting that several aspects were far from satisfactory. Price suggests that the police may have failed to adequately consider Edward's mental state when prioritising the investigation, which could have impacted the search and response. The book also highlights a significant point of contention regarding the investigation's handling of CCTV footage. Rachel Edwards, Richard's sister, is noted to have criticised the police's approach after the footage was analysed, a full 2 years after his disappearance. According to Price, a member of the investigation team dismissed the notion that the footage could be used to identify Edwards, labelling such an idea as arrant nonsense. Despite the critical findings and ongoing uncertainty, Edward's family did not declare him legally dead until 2008. Although they had an option to do so from 2002 onwards, they chose to keep his status as a missing person for several more years. It wasn't until the 23rd of November 2008 that Richard James Edwards was officially declared presumed dead, marking a sombre conclusion to the case marked in both hope and frustration. Over the years, Edwards' case has continued to attract interest from fans, journalists, and investigators alike. The criticism of the investigation's handling, as detailed by Simon Price, has left a lingering sense of frustration. Many believe that a more thorough approach might have uncovered crucial details or resolved the case sooner. The delay in analysing key evidence, such as CCTV footage, and the perceived lack of attention to Edward's mental state has fueled ongoing debates about the adequacy of the police response. The sightings reported in the years following his disappearance, though never confirmed, add to the enigmatic aura surrounding Edwards. Whether he sought refuge in distant lands or felt victim to darker circumstances, These sightings contribute to the speculation and mystique that envelop his final days. For his family, particularly his sister Rachel, the journey has been one of profound sorrow and endurance. Their choice to delay declaring him legally dead reflected their ongoing hope and struggle with the emotional weight of his absence. Finally, the official presumption of death brought a measure of closure, but also left many questions unanswered. Richard James Edwards remains a figure of intrigue and melancholy, his story a haunting blend of talent, mental anguish, and unresolved mystery. His legacy lives on through his work with the Manic Street Preachers and the indelible impact he made on music and culture. As fans and historians continue to delve into his life and disappearance, the full truth remains elusive, a testament to the enigmatic nature of his final, shadowy days. Thank you for listening.